Welcome to Rethinking K-12 Education Grant on Demand. This episode is Google Sheets for Students. What and why? What is this? Google Sheets is a web-based spreadsheet application that can be used by students for data collection and organization. Why does it matter? Teachers can use Sheets to compile resources for students, while students can use Sheets to compile data to use with formulas. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, you'll learn how to navigate Google Sheets and its features, organize data in Sheets to use formulas and create charts, link to outside resources within a spreadsheet, share Google Sheets with students for collaborative purposes, and plan real-life applications of Google Sheets with your students.
To get started, I'm going to open a new blank spreadsheet within Google Drive. I'm going to review some of the general formatting features and other tools within Sheets first, before getting into some practical ways you can have students use Sheets both independently and collaboratively. First, each individual box for data is called a cell. A selection of cells is called a range. The horizontal line of cells are the rows, and the vertical lines of cells are the columns. Formatting-wise, you have many of the same options that you have in Google Docs or slides. You can change the font size, the font color. You can bold, italicize, strike through, and you can adjust the alignment of data within the cells. You can, within the cells, adjust both the horizontal alignment as well as the vertical alignment. You can additionally denote the type of number that is in the cells if you're inputting number data. You can quickly convert to currency or a percentage. And if you use the drop-down menu by 1, 2, 3, you'll see a number of other different types of numbers that you can convert to, like date, time, duration, and even more formats. The cells themselves can be formatted as well. You can change the color of a cell, and you can adjust the border. So you can change where you want the border to be. If you highlight several, you can put lines all around. You can put just around the outside. You can have no borders at all. Change the border style itself. So you can play around with that to do what works best for you. When you have some data or text in a cell, just going to set this back. You can adjust the text wrapping to make it more readable. These cells automatically default to just continue horizontally, perpetually, to cover whatever amount of data you put into it, which, when you have several cells of text and data next to one another, will lead to some of the information being unreadable or cut off unless you highlight that cell specifically. So if I type something in the first cell, cell A1, I can read everything that I just typed into that cell, but I don't have any other cells with text in them. If I click on cell B1, and now I start typing here, now it's cut off the end of the text from cell A1. So if I highlight A1, the text wrapping icon is up here next to the alignment. You can choose to have it wrap. So it'll just expand the height of the row to keep all of the data within that one box, so it's all readable. You can also alter the direction of text or data in a cell, depending on what you're using the spreadsheet for. So you can angle it, make it readable from top to bottom rather than left to right. So sometimes if you're setting this up for data collection, it may be helpful to have the rows set up like this, so you have different data going horizontally. Similar to Google Docs or slides, if you set up a table and you highlight several cells together, you can merge them. So if I wanted to merge these three together, make one, the merge icon is up next to the borders, and you can merge them together. So this could be helpful if you're setting up a rubric or a portfolio or a resource list, and you have one topic and several subtopics beneath it that you want sorted out and separated. There are a number of other features and tools to use within Sheets, but they all apply to different purposes. So I'm going to focus on tools that apply to one use of Sheets with your students, and then go over the tools that apply to the other uses. So first I'm going to go over data collection and organization. The most standard use is for students to use it to input numbers, to calculate formulas, or to create charts. Sheets makes it very easy to compile quantitative data and then transform it into a chart. For science, math, even PE, more so than some other subjects, students may do research or surveys and have to interact with formulas and data. To input that data into Sheets, first you can add a title. If you want to merge those cells together, you can, but it's not required. So if we wanted to do favorite candies for students, I would put the title, and then I might list out a few different types of candy. Twizzlers, Reese's, Sour Straws, and Skittles. So my first column is going to be the text data, and the second column is going to be the number data. So now I'm going to put in the number of students that liked each of these candies. And it's easy to navigate within Sheets using just the keyboards, using the Enter key to bounce between different cells. And you can easily move cells with the hand tool and just kind of slide them to new spots. Once you have your data inputted into the spreadsheet, then you can decide how you want to set it up to be viewed by other students or whatever presentation you're using the data for. So you can either format this data right here to make it more presentable. So we can bold the title, we can add colors to each different candy, just to make it clear and separate the different pieces of data that we have. And we can have it like this, and you can easily print out a spreadsheet and have it readable and ready to go. You have spreadsheet settings and print in the file options. The other option is to use this data to create a chart. There is a chart icon in the toolbar and in the insert menu. You need to highlight all the data that you want included in your chart. So you can either click on one of the corners and use your cursor to drag over and highlight it, or you can click and use the Shift key and the arrow key on the keyboard to highlight everything. Then you can click on the chart icon and it will automatically populate a chart for you. Depending on the type of data that you put in, it might default to a different chart. This time it defaulted to a pie chart because that's what works best with the data that we have. So it will open up this chart editor window on the right-hand side. And if for some reason you close out of it and you want to go back to it, you can simply double click on the chart and it'll reopen it. You can edit the chart type. So if you prefer a bar graph, a line graph, you can change that accordingly. You can adjust the data range. If you missed some boxes when you were highlighting and you want to make sure they're included, you can adjust that. And then you can go to Customize. Under Chart Style, you can adjust the background color of the page. Color that's not in there. You can change the font. You can change the border color. You can enlarge it so it fills in this whole space. You could make it 3D. Pie chart allows you to add a donut hole into the center if you want something like that. You could add a border color if you want an outline around the pie slices. You could add the slice label. So right now the labels are off of each of the pie slices. You could have it on the slice. You could have the value and percentage, just the value, just the percentage, whatever you want to focus on. Again, you can adjust the font, the pie slices themselves, you can adjust the colors of, and this drop down allows you to toggle between the different pieces. And you can pull a pie slice away from the whole chart. If you go to distance from center, you can move a slice away a little bit, a lot, again, depending on what you're using the data for. Chart and axis title will let you name the chart. So if we want to do favorite candy, we can add that in and that'll pop up at the title. If you were using a bar graph or a line graph, you would have axis title options here, and you can just use this drop down to toggle between them. And the last option is the legend. So it auto defaults to this with the name and the percentages. I can change it to the top, and it just tells me what each of the colors mean. I could change it to labeled again, to the bottom, to the left, however you want it to look. There's no limit to the amount of data that you can input to create a chart. So students can really make use of this tool no matter what information they're working with. Either 4 options or dozens. And once the chart's been created, you can use the ellipses on the top right corner to download it as a PDF, as a graphic, as a PNG image, to copy it, and you're able to copy charts directly and paste them into a Google Doc or a slide presentation if you have students sharing out their findings. Students can also use data in a Sheets presentation to easily calculate different formulas. So I'm going to delete our chart, and I'm going to clear out the formatting. The function icon is this icon at the far end of the toolbar at the top. Has seemingly an endless amount of different formulas that you're able to use. You can go through a lot of them. The most commonly used ones are sum, average, count, maximum, and minimum. So they're at the top of this list, so you can get to them quickly and easily. Similarly to highlighting all the data to create a chart, if you're using a formula, just highlight which data you want the formula applied to. So if we want to do sum, it will explain what the formula is and explain the vocabulary being used in it. And you can simply press enter on the keyboard, and now I have the sum. If I wanted the count of how many different pieces of data I have, I can do that, and now I have 4. I can get the average, and it explains what the average is, and now I have the average. If students want to further organize the data that they've input, they can go to the data menu on the top, and they can sort the sheet, either from A to Z, or 1 to 10, or reverse from Z to A, or 10 to 1. So you highlight the data you want. If I want to go from high to low, low to high, you can pick that accordingly, and you can see that the data moved everything. That the 3 for Twizzlers is still with Twizzlers. That even though this is now at the top of the list, it took the rest of the data it was attached to with it. Under the Format menu, there's 2 tools that are also useful for data. The first is alternating colors, and this helps with the readability of the data you've put in. So if I highlight everything that I have, it'll make it so that each line is a slightly different color, so it's easier to negotiate which numbers are attached to which data, which text. And there's different color options that you can choose, and you can adjust them down here. So if you need something, if you have a great deal of data and you need things much clearer, much more separated, so you're not scrolling through the same colors and numbers and words start to get jumbled, this may be a good way to fix that. The other tool in formatting is conditional formatting. Conditional formatting lets you add rules to make specific aspects of data more prevalent. So, if we wanted to know which of the candies had less than 4 people who liked them, I can highlight the data that I want the rule to apply to, and I can say if there is less than 4, I want the cell highlighted red, so I know exactly which ones there are, how many there are quickly by looking at it, and I can apply that rule. And it automatically changed this Twizzler data to red because it's 3. If I change the Skittle data to 1, it'll automatically adjust that as well. So you can highlight the entire column at the top and add rules that apply to the whole column. If a cell is empty, you can have it set to a certain color so you know how many blank cells you have. Anything can be added as a rule, and there are a lot of different ways that you can set those rules up to make your data easier to navigate and much more clear. Those are all the features that students have available to them to use Sheets for straightforward data input, chart creation, and formula use. So you could either create a spreadsheet and share it with different students to work on together, or just have students open up a blank spreadsheet on their own to input data from any surveys or research that they've been working on. Sheets can also be used in some other fun ways that you might not think of. One of those ways is for pixel art. The first thing to do for pixel art is to resize the columns so that they're squares rather than rectangles. If you look at the row and you go to resize, you can see that the row height is 21. So we can highlight all the columns at once and resize them to 21 as well, so they're all squares. So if you click on A, so the whole column is highlighted, you can use the Shift key on the keyboard and the arrow key to move right along and highlight every single column. Then you right-click in the highlighted area, resize columns A to Z to 21, and you now have all kinds of tiny squares. So to give this to students to use for pixel art, they would just simply use the cell color fill-in to make a picture of some sort. So they could do something like this and make a happy face, and they can just fill in anywhere they like. And if you look on the internet, there are tons of pixel art templates and ideas that you could give to students to help kind of guide them and give them some ideas of things that they could create on their own. So it could be something as simple as that, a little lopsided, but simple. So this could be part of a fun art lesson or just a social emotional activity to give students some creative time. Another way that you can use Sheets with students is to provide them with resources, and one of those resources could be a rubric. You can use Google Sheets very similarly to how you would use a table in a Google Doc, but all of the cells are already set up for you to resize and organize appropriately. So you could create a rubric and either give it to students just as a reference, or you could give it to them and allow them to edit it so that they can go in and self-assess and grade themselves before you grade them after they've finished a project. To give students a rubric that they're able to go in and edit or grade themselves with, you can go and design it. You can add in your text boxes wherever you like. You can adjust the borders. You can make them different colors, take them away. You can make an entire group of cells a certain color to make it very clear the different aspects of the project that they need to focus on, the different elements that they're going to be graded on. whatever you like to make it fun and presentable and easy to read and navigate for the students. Once you have it set up, then you can duplicate this one sheet. If you go to the bottom, you'll see it says Sheet 1, and if you click on the little drop down, you can duplicate it, and it'll create a second copy of it. You can also then use that same drop down to rename it. So you could name the second one Student Assessment. And you can tell the students just to go in and highlight or black out the wrong boxes, however you want them to be able to grade themselves. So you could tell them to go in and fill in yellow the boxes that represent what they think that they've earned. And then you're able to take their perception of their work and accomplishment into consideration when you give them a grade. Now, if you were going to use sheets for this kind of purpose, where you have students adding in information and working together with you or their peers in a single spreadsheet, you'd have to add the students to the spreadsheet as editors to allow them to be able to do that. So similarly to docs or slides, you go to Share at the top right. You can add an individual student by email or several students if it's a group project. Just search for them, make sure that they're in there as an editor if you want them to be able to edit, and it will invite them in, or they'll be able to find it in their Shared With Me folder in Google Drive. And if you didn't want them to be able to edit and you maybe just wanted the whole class to be able to see this research rubric as a reference point for them, you could just get the shareable link on the bottom. You can change it to anyone with the link can view, and then you won't have dozens of students in here altering things, moving things around when you don't really want them to. You could also use Google Sheets as an interactive resource list for students, with links embedded into it to outside resources or other pertinent documents and sheets in your drive. So you could set up, similar to a hyperdoc you might set up with Google Docs, you could set up a hypersheet where you have different aspects of a project denoted and you have links to different things they need to access. So this links to a note-taking sheet. This links to the National Park website with a virtual tour. This links to a YouTube video. This links to a Grand Canyon Google Earth tour. So when you create this and then you give it to the students, like I said, you want to give it to them and make it so that they can only view it. That way they can't go in and delete any links, they can't change any of the information. All they can do is go in and use it as a reference and link out to things that they need to complete this project appropriately. You can also add in these check boxes. If you go to Insert, there's a checkbox option, and the students are able to track what they've done and what they've finished as they work through this project. So to add a link to something else in your Google Drive or on the internet, you could get a shareable link for anything in your Google Drive. So if I want to copy this link, if I want to add this rubric into this, I can find wherever I want to put it, highlight the word rubric, and the link icon is up here in the toolbar, and I can just paste it right in there. And now when the students go into this spreadsheet and they click on that, they can link right over to this research rubric that I set up for them. And you still have the same options to insert images or drawings into a cell. And to insert an image, you can resize things to make it fit better. You can search in Google itself, in your drive, you can upload. If I wanted to add a picture of an alligator, I can pop it right into a cell. And I can make the cell bigger so that it's easier to see the picture. So very similar to anything that you could do in a table in Google Docs, you're able to replicate in Google Sheets and share it just as easily with your students.
Now that you've reached the end of the episode, you should be able to navigate Google Sheets and its features, organize data in Sheets to use formulas and create charts, link to outside resources within a spreadsheet, share Google Sheets with students for collaborative purposes, plan real-life applications of Google Sheets with your students. For more information about additional TRLE video on demand sessions and other available TRLE programs, go to pd.swboces.org/TRLE_grant or contact Mary Beth Wilson. We value your feedback about your experience with this digital resource. Please take a moment to share feedback about your experience with this resource using the following link.